7 common mistakes that people make after buying matcha. If we have not met before, I'm Pat Tokuyama, creator of this YouTube channel, All Day Like a Shark. Subscribe if you want to see more Japanese and tea related videos like this one today. Mistake number 1 is going to be not storing your matcha properly. Once the package is opened and exposed to the outside world, it's going to start to deteriorate quickly. Oxygen, light, and heat, as you know, are the worst enemies to matcha. This is why matcha comes in aluminum-lined bags from Japan, at least if that's where you're buying it from. Once opened, the best place to store it is airtight in your refrigerator, in the dark. Your refrigerator is dark, isn't it? Mistake number 2 is not preparing it properly. Matcha can be clumpy, and in order to avoid clumps in your cup, you've got to do 2 things. One is going to be to strain it through a fine mesh strainer. Chakoshi is a Japanese tea strainer, if you haven't used one of those before. First, wet it with a small amount of water and stir it to make a paste. The second is going to be to use a whisk, chasen. That's the Japanese word for a bamboo whisk, typically used to make traditional matcha, usucha, which is the light matcha that you might have seen in a big matcha bowl or chawan. That will also help to reduce some of the clumping, at least if your technique is correct. Mistake number 3 is if you are using your cooking matcha for drinking tea, at least in the traditional sense, or using your drinking matcha for cooking, then it's sort of a waste. First, cooking matcha for drinking, at least the traditional tea, usucha, is not the best way to enjoy it. Usually this is because it's a little bit of a lower quality tea than something that would be produced specifically for drinking traditional matcha or usucha. At least in my experience, using a cooking matcha to make a hot or cold tea doesn't taste as good as something that's intended to be used primarily for drinking. So if that's what you're doing, using cooking matcha to make traditional matcha or drinking it, that might turn a lot of people off to matcha because it's just a little bit harsh and not that pleasant. And second, if you're using your expensive drinking matcha to cook with or bake with, then that's kind of a little bit of a waste. Mottainai is the term in Japanese because, as you may know, matcha that is intended for drinking can be quite expensive and has a lot of refined characteristics that are lost, especially if you're baking it or cooking with it in food. So if you want to enjoy drinking matcha to the fullest, keep it simple and just add water, or a little bit of sugar if you like something sweet. Mistake number 4 is not measuring your matcha. Matcha, as you may know, can be very bitter and astringent, and to many people these are negative characteristics, especially when experienced to the extremes. So as you may have seen in my other trainings, measuring when making tea is critical to getting the best flavor out of the tea. Heat or lack thereof with too much or too little will also affect the flavor. So use a thermometer for precision, and of course the recommended temperature when you make the tea. Second is to use a standard ratio of water to matcha powder and adjust to taste from there. Everybody has different tastes, right? That's what makes you unique. So mistake number 5 is for both hot and cold tea, not drinking it right away. So as you may know, traditional matcha is made with a bamboo whisk. This helps to aerate and suspend the matcha in little micro bubbles that are formed when whisking. If not enjoyed immediately, then the matcha particles are going to settle at the bottom of the cup thanks to gravity. So what you're left with is a thin, watery green liquid on top, which tastes nothing like it does when you initially made it. So if you've waited a while and you see this, just gently give it another whisk again to resuspend it. Or even better, next time, just drink it faster because it's really not that much liquid. Mistake number 6 is not eating something with your matcha. You might have an iron stomach, but a strong cup of matcha might make you rethink how strong it really is. Like espresso is concentrated coffee, matcha is concentrated tea, and the tannins and other compounds in both products can cause stomach upset. Hurts my stomach sometimes, but maybe I have a sensitive stomach. Therefore, I suggest going slow with very small sips and a little bit of food if possible. Usually sweets are a great pairing with matcha, or water as you enjoy your cup. Those are some of my favorite ways to complement Japanese tea. And if you want inspiration, of course, for how to make certain Japanese sweets, like you might find in a Japanese cafe, how to use your matcha powder and hojicha in baked goods, for example, check out the link in the description to learn more. Mistake number 7 is going to be drinking it later in the day when you're sensitive to caffeine. Matcha has caffeine, but thanks to a compound called theanine, naturally found in green tea, it may not be obvious to you. Theanine helps to make you a little bit less jittery than you might normally get from coffee, which has no theanine. So don't let that fool you. Matcha can keep you up late, especially if you drink later in the day. The worst is when you want to go to sleep and you can't, right? So now that you're familiar with 7 mistakes that people make with matcha, after buying it of course, you're ready to get on with it and enjoy your next cup. So if you'd like to get your hands on some of my favorite organic matcha from Japan, check out the link in the description below to see what's in stock in the shop. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet for more Japanese related videos related to cooking or tea. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and got some value out of it. Share it with somebody if you think they could too. And otherwise, I will see you next time. じゃあね。バイバイ。